ownership will become more and more important. People really want those roots. But at the same time, if it doesn't have that functionality that Jake mentioned, then I'm having listings sit on the market that I thought would have sold right away. So it's kind of a weird dynamic, I think.
I mean, what I'm seeing too, just from the amount of like buyers that I'm talking to and open houses that I'm sitting, is that a lot of people right now are waiting to purchase until after the election for whatever reason. So that's just what I'm hearing when they walk through the properties. They're saying, you know, I'm looking, but there's stuff available. I'm not really too worried about it. And for whatever reason, they want to wait until the election is over. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I mean, we've had second and third showings on properties where we can't get people to write. They're waiting for the election, which is strange to me that you would come back to see the property that many times. But what I've also had is I've had places where I've had 2 showings in a month and I get an offer on it and it's a good offer. So the market is so strange right now. You know, you really can't, I feel like it's a little unpredictable. But I do think there's certain products in certain areas that aren't selling well, where your next door neighbor could have a totally different product in the same area and it goes quickly. So I think you just have to know like what product and what areas are doing really well, and then you have to price accordingly. Where like, I think even if sometimes with the market like this, even if you underprice, you still can't sell it because it's not a pricing thing, it's a market thing.
I agree.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, how are you managing those client expectations along the way for those sellers, right? Like, I think that's one of the hardest things right now for me is knowing that something's priced right, knowing that you've done what you need to do to position it in the market, but it's just still, you're getting showings, but you're not getting offers. That's kind of what I'm getting right now. And like, I'm trying to figure out how to, I know it's just communication, right? But like, how else are you guys making sure that your clients are at bay with what's going on?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, information is power. So the more data I can aggregate to show them apples to oranges, comparing other comps within the building that have maybe even been on the market longer. And maybe they've been fire sailing their price and they keep doing reduction after reduction and it still hasn't sold. I think that really tells you what's going on and that it's a demand issue. You know, more than a price issue. So that's been one thing. There's a lot of great publications that go out through Crane Chicago Business. There was one that just spoke to kind of the sentiment of what's happening downtown. So, you know, using sort of that, you know, supporting news piece to reinforce kind of the perception that is the reality that I'm trying to help them wrap their heads around has been helpful. I know MRED sends those, you know, charts that show you all the aggregated data, but that almost paints a prettier picture than, you know, the macro, you know, economics and the micro stuff that we're dealing with day to day.
Yeah, from a lender's perspective, most of my business has always for 20 years been mostly in the city, and I'm probably doing more in the suburbs this year than any other year. A lot of people moving from the city. With that being said, it seems like a lot of those people that are moving from the city, their places are moving pretty quick, but it's a certain price point from what I'm seeing, like the $200,000 to $400,000 range, and then upgrading, moving to the suburbs. But yeah, I can definitely tell the difference this year compared to other years with the amount of business in the suburbs compared to the city. So it was interesting to hear what's going on in the city as far as listings go.
Fortunately, I still have clients staying in the city. I think the single family market right now in the city is doing great. I don't think there's enough inventory. So I do think at the lower price point, that's where I'm seeing it.
Sorry about that.
Busy man.
I don't know.
Gotta disconnect the Apple ID.
I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on
it
here.
happens. Brooke, you were gonna say something earlier.
Recently.
Let me ask, Brooke, were you gonna say earlier?
Joy keeps
I told you. You gotta disconnect your Apple ID. Hey, I want to throw this out there. Tommy Choi may or may not be on one next week, so I will leave that. I will leave people's imaginations too. That's just the fun of these, you know. I mean, I get kids in the background. Brooke, what you were gonna say something earlier? I don't know if you had remembered that thought or what we were talking about, but
Well, price points for me, I've been seeing the most movement kind of 5 to 7. kind of the, 2, 3, 4 seems like an affordable price point, but I think a lot of those are those first-time buyers that are either being too particular about their searches or they're just kind of waiting it out. But we've had a lot of success with people moving up from their first condo to the second home, whether that be another larger condo or a townhome or a single family. So we've been catching a lot of those transitions.
How are you guys with your buyers? I have a lot of what I feel like they're buyers that are qualified, like they're in flexible situations, but they're it's almost too flexible where they're like, it's kind of like what Danielle was talking about. Like they're kind of just like waiting to see kind of what happens. And they keep asking me like, is it better to buy now? Is it better to buy in the new year, in the spring? And my honest opinion is that like November to February is like one of the best times to buy every single year, not just this year, but just because of the motivated sellers and you're not going to have as much inventory. But it's kind of frustrating at the same time because you have these people that are like ready to go, but they're also like, it could be another 3 to 6 months before they actually decide to pull the trigger on something. I'm seeing a lot of that right now.
So, I mean, I try to really push my buyers to understand that in the winter, there's always going to be a price reduction on most properties that you're going to be able to get. But what the problem is that a lot of people in general don't feel comfortable doing what is outside of the herd, if that makes sense. So if everyone's sitting on the fence, it's like, oh, this is what I should do. But really, that's the time for you to have the most opportunity to go in and snag something at a great price, because all of these sellers are sitting here with these showings and getting no one to write. So it's not on every property, but it's really hard, I think, to explain to your buyers, I know everyone else isn't buying, but once everyone else is, then, the value is just not there for you as a buyer. So, I mean, I know because we do so much new construction, like the last couple of years during, let's say, November to February, I couldn't give away one of the units and the developers would have taken probably some price reductions, but I couldn't get anyone to write. But as soon as February hit, I sold all of them for full price. So that's what I try to show my buyers, to explain to them, hey, like now is the time to strike and now is the time to purchase if you want to get something at a good deal. By the time everyone else is buying, like the markets kind of went past you if you're looking to get something for a good deal.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I'm really saw how quickly the market shifted too, from being so robust this summer to slowing down. So just as quickly things can pick back up, in the coming months. And I think a big part about getting them over the fence is understanding, the whole qualifications and of like, what is it they're truly looking for? And if it's out there and, they should be buying it. If they're not buying it, then they don't have that urgency. And maybe it's timing around selling their home or a lease or things like that. And then just working to manage those expectations. I'm curious, since showings are down, you guys, what sort of creative things have we been doing to drive traffic, or with open houses to, we got to keep our sellers happy and knowing that we're rooting for their best interest through this slower time. Has anyone been doing things differently this last several months here? So
we are getting ready, since I know you guys are, a bunch of brokers will be watching. So pretty much, I think almost every listing, I've got to look through. There may be a couple that we're not doing, but every single one of our listings will be kind of publishing and marketing it this week. We're doing an additional $5,000 agent co-op bonus if anything goes under contract before election. So like we're running the gamut on everything. So I talked to all of my sellers. We're doing this. We're going to email, text. So that's just something we're trying to get, pushed out there. And then I think, what else are we doing? We're doing a big broker open. Well, we're getting a model unit at one of the developments we have. So we're doing like a masquerade party at the end of the month, which I'll send out, which will be really cool. Cause I feel like finally people are wanting to go back to broker open houses a little bit. Everyone's kind of bored of sitting at home. And I feel like at least a couple that we've done, we've had a very decent turnout within reason. So we're going to do it with mask and social distance. And, they have big open spaces at these places. So, that's kind of what we're doing. Obviously, like reverse prospecting, following up with everyone that's been through. It's just like at this point, I feel like now is when you have to put a lot of extra effort into selling, and we're putting more money obviously into selling too, because at this time period you just have to when people just aren't coming in and buying things so quickly.
Yeah. I hate to say it like this, but I feel like realtors, like we all have to pick up our phone Like we have to call someone, like get feedback so I can really understand, like, and try to diagnose like what the buyer, like what they don't see in the property, or like how I can maybe help them realize that it does work for them. Because like I feel like before, and I'm guilty of it, I feel like I was just more like, okay, they don't like it, move on. But now it's like, okay, you only have so many chances when you have someone look at a property that you really want to make sure you're really understanding their motivation and trying to diagnose, like, and figure out if it's a good fit for them. So I feel like it's definitely more work. Every listing is requiring a lot more work, which is fine. That's our job. But it's just about having those conversations.
Yeah, I think, now is the time where, I mean, not to say that people aren't selling throughout the year, but this is like where you actually show if you can sell. I mean, when you're walking those buyers through with an agent, even their agent, like, you're there to educate not only them, but if the agent maybe doesn't know, you're educating them too. You have to ask like what type of inventory they've been looking at. You have to know the inventory for your product that you're showing so that you can speak intelligently to them and explain to them the pros and cons. You've really got to like dive deep, I think, in order to sell right now. I mean, if not, if you just kind of let people come and go, I just don't think that it's there. I think people are really wanting to have that like expertise and that advice. And I think that makes them feel more confident with the purchase of the property that they choose.
More value, the better.
What about the properties that are challenging to sell? Like meaning the 1-bedrooms, the elevator building, smaller units that used to be great rentals, but now they're not. I mean, that's where I'm seeing my struggle helping my seller, the client who doesn't want to keep the property anymore, but we're not getting traffic. And they're really priced under market value when you look at the data. So, and the photos are great and you do the open houses, but you just aren't getting anything, like not any traffic. Because I have other properties that are selling like this, and then the flip side is the ones that it's becoming harder to hold the seller's hands because they're frustrated and we can't like create the buyers. They're not coming in the door.
It's expectations around the wait and see approach for some, like for my sellers that can do that and that can stomach that. Some of them have decided it's just like, it's not just reducing the price, it's we gotta, fire sale and we gotta unload this.
Yep.
I think, marketing with sort of creative, ways to position an office nook in a corner, or the things that people, maybe redoing photos and changing around furnishings to kind of refresh. I mean, that's all we can really be doing is keeping the marketing top notch and as refined as possible, so that when those buyers, do pop back out of the woodwork, we're front and center.
Right.
So we have about, I would say 5 or 6 listings like that are 1 and 2 bedrooms. And so we put a strategy for the seller up front and say, like, this is kind of our idea of what could or couldn't happen. And if not, then here's at this price, at this point, we're going to do this. We're going to do a price reduction. At this point, we're going to, list it for rent too at this point. And that's where we're kind of at with these. And I think that's probably what you're saying is like, we have them for rent and for sale, and we're not getting traffic at all. So like 3 of them, we're taking them off the market. And at this point, I've told the sellers, and granted, they have to have the money to do this, but a couple of them, they need to have remodel work done to them. So we're saying, go ahead, take it off the market. The market's probably going to be dead right now. Remodel, this is the time to do it. You're not going to be able to rent it right now or sell it. And we hope that the spring is going to be better and you can put it back on then. So I think if anything, you can look at it as a positive for sellers if they have the means to put into the capital into the project of taking it off the market and like, let's do some work to it and get it into a better condition. Granted, there's the risk involved with that too. But a lot of these places, that may be the best way to do it. Or with our sellers, we're telling them like, if we may not be able to actually sell it this fall. We may have to wait until the spring. So we're kind of all over the board with what we're doing. But I think if they can afford to and it needs upgrades, like now's a great time to take it off the market and do that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Do you think though, like, so to go off of that, to read this in the spring, like how do you guys think the spring market is going to be?
I think it's better than the fall market. I've been aggregating my sales data for several years, and I know that everyone's business ebbs and flows throughout the year. I know this year is truly an anomaly of a year. However, I tend to slow down and, not slow down, I'm always busy, but like I tend to have a little dip this time of year. And then it's, January, February are my busiest. By March, I put almost, a third of my annual revenue under contract. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, because that's what the data has supported in the past. And I think there's the elections, and there's a lot going on, but people are always going to need to move. There's always going to be these shifts in lifestyle and jobs and things like that. And I think it's just getting some more confidence behind that, and that just takes time.
So I kind of feel like what's happening has really helped our industry. It's not hurt it. And I think that that could continue on with everything going on. Once everything stops and it goes back to, I guess, what the old way was, if it does, then I think that's where I think that we could see some issues with our real estate, because I think right now people are moving for all sorts of reasons that they never planned on. I know a lot of our business this year has from people that 100% were not planning on moving this year. They just decided because of COVID, because of other things, because we don't have to go back to our jobs downtown, we can work from home, that they wanted to make changes in, what their housing was. So to me, I think as long as this kind of keeps going on, people are still going to do that. But once everything stops, that's when I would be interested to see where the market goes. Because I think once it stops, actually, I think the market could slow down significantly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've heard that a lot from people this year, that they weren't expecting to move, or they thought they were in their forever home, or they weren't going to move for 10 years. And all of a sudden they're looking for a new house or wanting to move. So that's definitely been a trend this year.
What were you going to say, Brooke? I know.
Sorry, I've had problems with my Zoom this whole time, you guys. So I've been kind of trying to talk, but I've been freezing a lot.
You're
not hearing everything everyone's saying.
You're crystal clear now. We can hear you perfect.
I don't know how everyone's last end of the year was, but my November, my last quarter of last year was actually pretty bad, and significantly. My last quarter almost every year isn't great, but last year I was really worried about what this year was going to entail before we even had the pandemic. And then this year, I think everyone would agree that it's been an anomaly. I've had a great year, but it's also been a year that's been plagued with people that have made decisions. Maybe they were thinking about it, but have snapped to change their life based on what's been going on in the world. And so now I do think that we might be going into a little bit of a shift, and anybody that lived through the recession, hopefully it's nothing close to that, but we have to kind of pivot our expectations. We've all kind of been able to put a listing on the market and it sells itself. We're not having to really work as hard as we do now, and shift our expectations both with our buyers and our sellers to understand that we're kind of maybe shifting into a tide of a buyer's market, and setting the right expectations for people moving forward. I hope that spring brings us a busier market, but I have not had stuff moving. I've had a lot of my listings just sitting here, and I noticed it drop off the last 5 weeks. So, and my listings are like Lakeview, Lincoln Park, but mostly North Side, and they're not moving at all.
A lot of my business is taking renters into homeownership. So I've got a nice database of folks that I've helped for several years that are not yet into homeownership. A lot of them, tell me I'm 2 years out, I'm 3 years out. A lot of those buyers have bumped up to this year, but I still have a whole bunch that are wanting to buy next year. So as long as I think the economy is stabilized with their jobs and their industries, that I think we're going to see a nice another 12 months of robust activity. But you're absolutely right. This can't last forever. I also think with some of this suburban movement, it can be a knee-jerk reaction. And while a lot of these people were going to be making those moves and with their families, inevitably at some point, I think, if things do start getting better in terms of people feeling confident about, the culture of the city and being able to move around safely without this crazy pandemic, that a lot of people will shift and they might turn the boat back around and come full circle. People are always ebbing and flowing and moving each way.
I do think that Chicago is Chicago for a reason. Like, even though today people are, there's a mass exodus, I have a good amount of agent to agent referral business from other places around the country. And I'm having more people that are being referred into me moving to Chicago than I'm referring out. So I think it's still going to remain strong. I think the city market's going to snap back. It's just a matter of I think trends are going to change, and yeah, there might be an oversupply of, you know, luxury luxury rentals downtown. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think that people are still going to want to be in the city, but we might see a little bit further expansion. But I do think it's going to remain strong because interest rates, I mean, Feds said they're not really going to touch those in 2021. So I think we're going to continue to see anyone that's like ready, willing, and able. They're going to be in the market for sure.
One of the things I think that we as agents kind of need to do, and this is what I'm going to try and do, is I have a lot of clients that this year have what we call traded up, and reaching out to those people, because if they are trying to get more space, and then if they're buying a bigger home, which chances are they are, then you're going to also, you know, they're going to get a better price on a bigger home where they're spending more money. And I think kind of reaching out to people and helping them understand that it's a really good time for people to be doing that. I've already had a lot of people doing that, and I have a lot more that I think next year are going to go with that. So I'm just hoping I can sell their places and there'll be buyers for them.
That's one of the most challenging. I've had a lot of sell buys this year. And it's become this, like in the beginning of the year, it was like, no problem. As long as we price it right, it'll sell. And then we'll get you into the next place and you'll be able to get a good deal on that. But now it's like, you know, you really have to be like, I find myself like checking myself, being like, okay, you just got to go out there and make it happen, because it's so easy to say, like, I don't know what's, you know, we could list it and it's not going to sell, but like, how are you like gaining your client's confidence to be like, okay, there is a chance that it doesn't sell, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that it does. I found that a very, very challenging conversation right now.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, you know, there's so much depending on it, and the conversation used to always be like, you know, that first domino has to fall for most people before the second one can fall, which is the purchase. And now it's, you know, I have a client right now they listed it and they were gonna buy in a different state, and their property hasn't sold in over 3 months. So it's like now they're caught up in a temporary living situation. So it's just very hard to address that. But I'm also like putting more work into this listing than I ever have. Like, so there's things that I'm doing that are outside of the box, but it's just still not getting the same result. So managing those expectations is incredibly hard.
Yeah, I think knowing the runway that the sellers have, you know, I'm running into a lot of, with the double-ended deals there, where the sellers that are wanting to buy a new place are too eager to get on the buy side before, like, you know, putting the cart before the horse. And so, you know, they just need to understand, like, we can't control the market. We can only respond to the market. So if that is, you know, you don't want to be renting an apartment in the interim or whatnot, like, then you need to understand what that means in case your current home does not sell, and make sure, you know, there's all sorts of creative products out there too, you know, bridge loans and stuff like that, but something to think about.
I definitely, when I'm taking my new listings now, I set a timeline from the very start, kind of like you were saying, Daniela, to be able to say in the first, you know, week we'll list here, within, you know, the first 2 weeks, if not 10 days, we're going to drop here. And I kind of map out the first month so I can manage the expectations of, you have to get below market value at this point. I think coming into this market in the winter, in the elections, if you want to sell, if you're realistic and you want to sell, you have to be below fair market value, unfortunately.
A lot of my savvy buyers are reaching out to me and they're not, you know, buyers that would be buying tomorrow, but they're watching the market and they're saying, you know, I'm seeing all this inventory, like, it seems like and everything's sitting, and then like no one's dropping their prices. And so I do think there's a demographic out there that's like waiting for things to come down, and they're like, so there's such a fear of that happening that they're kind of immobilized right now until they feel more confidence around that.
You know, I had a listing in 2017. I was the seller's agent at 2020 Lincoln Park West on a 1-bedroom that I got, you know, a nice price for my clients. And I have a buyer that I actually just brought there, and she put an offer from the buyer who bought it from me and got it for $20,000 off of the price that my seller sold this buyer, if that makes sense. And I told the agent right off the bat, I said, my client is buying for a good price, and that's the only reason she's buying right now. And I was really upfront about it, because the reason she was buying in this market was to take the opportunity to get a really good price, and she saw it. So it was one of those things that I don't know if it's going to be like that in the spring, but in a building, like a high-rise building where there's an influx of properties, being upfront. And I said to the agent, listen, he said, you know what you bought it for? And I said, yeah, I do. But unfortunately, it's a different market right now. And, taking that opportunity to work on our buyer's behalf, to get a good price is also something that I think is important.
So that kind of leads me to a question that I have for the appraiser, Michael, I believe. So are you seeing prices come down where you would actually price it higher than the contract price?
No, we're not seeing things come down right now. Everything's pretty stable and has been the last 3 years, even despite all this. And it's probably because of the interest rates. That's the only thing I can explain it. It's weird though. Every neighborhood's different. Things are like River North, Gold Coast, those properties really aren't moving right now for obvious reasons. But places like North Center, Ravenswood, those houses, they're maybe listed for a couple weeks.
Right.
So, it really depends. And then you see the North Shore, a completely different animal. You have people moving from the north side of the city to the North Shore, people moving from the North Shore to Wisconsin. It's interesting right now. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, I think too, with interest rates being so low, I mean, I hate to say this, but like as a buyer, like I'm buying investment properties right now because interest rates are so low. Do I think that I may be hitting the top of the market? Yeah, I do. But I also know that interest rates are low and I plan on holding these houses for 15 plus years. So what does it matter? The market probably will go up and down and fluctuate by the time I sell. To me, I want to lock in that interest rate. Right. So I think that that's super important when you're dealing with buyers too, is just to explain to them that. I mean, not that interest rates are going to go up anytime soon, but if they do, probably more than likely it will make pricing go down a little bit. But if you plan on being there for a while, I mean, it doesn't really matter. So if you find something and you like it, jump on it. And I think that a lot of buyers have been seeing the same thing. I feel like a lot of buyers may know that they are paying more of a premium, but they're okay with it to trade up with everything going on right now because it's more of a lifestyle thing for them. And they want, this house and they want this feeling and that's where they want to be. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to push. And I mean, I think even buying, like I said, at the height of the market sometimes is okay if you can get the right rate, depending on what your plan is, your strategy for the property.
I think it's great. You practice what you preach, right? So your clients hear that you're doing this, and that adds a level of confidence because all they see are the headlines, and the cost of the financing is massive. Even compounded at a 2.5% interest rate over 30 years, let alone a 4% over 30 years. So that's a lot of money out the window that they're paying to the bank that can be leveraged at a lower rate today. So.
Well, and I also think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to time the market and I want to get the best deal. I mean, listen, if we all could time the market, we probably wouldn't be sitting here on this call right now. So it's just like, at some point you just gotta, pull the trigger and buy your property, right? And like, even for me, like I've tried to time the market before, and I was not good at it. So I just decided, the more that I sit on the fence and wait, every 6 months, every year, I keep seeing prices go up. So what's the point? I'm just going to buy. I'm just going to think, here's what I'm doing. I've got a plan. I'm going to stick to it. Here's the strategy. And, understanding that like anything, the stock market, whatever, things ebb and flow, prices go up and down. So.
I have a question more on the legal side of things, maybe for Justin in the attorney corner.
Sure.
We've had more deals this year kind of in turmoil, and there's just such emotion charging both the buyer and the seller in these transactions. And I'm like one that I try to keep deals together at all costs, but I've had more fall apart this year than I have ever had in the past. And I'm curious, like, what your experience has been with kind of holding these deals together, creative things that you've done, or, kind of just what you're seeing out there with deals sticking.
Yeah, it's been a tough year. I was thinking back to the conversation about the home sale contingency that Jordan, what you were referencing. That I think we're talking about a different type of stickiness, but on the home sale side, people are jumping the gun. they're getting the purchase under contract. I'm seeing more deals fall apart because we're not meeting the contract by date. If you're thinking of the 7.0 contract, than I've seen the past few years, and it's because people don't want to do the drops. I had one deal fall apart a few weeks ago where they didn't meet the contract by date. I was representing the seller, and the buyer wanted another 3 weeks to do a single price drop, and that wasn't acceptable for my clients. But let's talk about the other type of stickiness I'm seeing, which is more around condition of property and inspections. I'm doing a lot of managing expectations myself with my clients and trying to, it's a lot of verbal communication. You know, last year, the year before, you could have held a deal together, maybe more over email. Now you're not going to get past the sticky situation without jumping on a phone call. On the seller side, maybe that's talking this through with them and helping them realize that if there's, you know, some of these condos, I'm running into a lot of masonry sealant schedule issues, a lot of water infiltration, you know, helping them realize between the market and the situation itself, you kind of want to work with this buyer as long as they're being somewhat reasonable to keep the deal together. How do we do that? So there's a lot of escrows coming up, post-closing escrows, but the danger there is you need to make sure that your agreement about the post-closing escrow is drafted well, because I've seen a lot of situations where the attorneys just throw together the escrow agreement, you know, 2 hours before closing. It's pretty vague, and then disputes arise later, and that just costs everybody a lot of time and headache. And on the buyer side, you have a lot of first-time home buyers, at least this is what I'm seeing, where they're buying existing homes, but they want new construction. And
Yeah.
you have to help them, you have to do a lot of hand holding and help them cross that bridge to realize that, you know, look, okay, the seller's not willing to fix the GFCI outlets. I understand that. I know they should be there, but please, like, we can have a handy person come in and fix this post-closing for a really cheap cost. Just helping them realize, educate them about the things that we see. Obviously, I'm not an inspector, but we all see a lot of these inspection reports, and just trying to help them cross that bridge. But for me, it's been a lot of verbal communication, a lot more this year than I think in prior years.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Jake. I think this year has been more than any where every purchase seems like there's constant changes. There's inspections, there's post-closing escrow holdbacks, there's deals falling apart. My current house is gonna sell, is not selling, so I gotta buy the new house without selling my current. It's really been a struggle on almost every purchase. There's some sticky situation that we've been having to deal with.
Well, I think something that we probably all do is communication. There's so many times the other brokers don't communicate. And it really, now more than ever, is so important to be transparent and upfront and actually pick up the phone and talk to the other broker, because I'm sure we've all had that experience with brokers who just don't return our calls or say, let's leave it in the hands of the attorney, when I feel like we always need to be intertwined with the attorney to work. I don't know if you would agree or not, but
I would.
yeah. Yeah, of course, right? That's where I see the trouble, when the other agent just kind of walks away and lets the inspector do their job, lets the attorney do their job, but is no longer in the picture. And that's when the seller and the buyer. So it's always nice to work with another great professional.
Amazing how powerful a phone call can be, and kind of just getting that feedback. It's really hard otherwise through email to link up on the same page.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the attorneys are never seeing, you know, we just talked about a lot of this is like inspection related stuff, or like, you know, building things that are going on. But the attorneys they've never been in the property, you know. So Justin, like, you know, I know the attorneys I work with, you know, that stuff comes down to the conversations between the agents. And I do feel like more now than ever, like, time kills deals. So like just nipping it in the bud as quickly as possible has been very important.
Yeah, and if the agents aren't doing, you know, a great job telling the client reach out, call the inspector. I don't know. I wasn't there. As you said, Jordan, I never see the property. I armchair quarterback the whole thing from a computer.
Right.
But call the inspector if you're that concerned about a condition. Ask for more information about it.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of I do a lot of first-time home buyers, but that are purchasing, decent price homes. But yeah, their expectations of what they're looking for their first home is unbelievable. Yeah, they basically want new construction, but not paying that kind of price. And they're trying to blow deals because like the tub's not caulked or something. And I'm like, this is the fourth home you've looked at. The seller doesn't necessarily have to fix that. You're gonna blow the deal because there's some caulk missing or something. But yeah, there's some crazy expectations out there for sure.
I used to see, most of my deals, if it's minor stuff, $500-$750 credit, throw them a couple bones. And now the buyers want thousands and thousands, and the seller doesn't even want to give $1 because, they bought the home 3 years ago and all those things around their inspection. So it's just, it's been fun and challenging to navigate, to say the least.
Well, plus the seller just probably got beat up in pricing. They
Exactly.
came down, did the reduction we asked for, and then they really get the offer, and then they came down in the offer, and then now they have to come down for nonsense, nickel and diming. So yeah.
Our job's always been to find the meeting of the minds, but I feel like the minds are just getting spread further and further apart. And so it's been obviously challenging.
So I actually have a question. It's Michael, right? The appraiser?
Yeah.
So all of us have probably experienced this year with COVID, and it kind of brings me back to some interesting memories from no doc loans and, when we had the last recession, but all these drive-by appraisals and waiver of appraisals that have been happening, because I know it's been happening on almost all of my buyers and my listings. And I just wonder, from a standpoint of a value standpoint, how this is going to affect our market too, because we've had, I think the last like 5 appraisals I've had have either been a waiver or a drive-by.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's going to matter on the actual, excuse me, sir. I don't think it's going to matter for purchases and whatnot, because, we know you guys take good photos. We make general assumptions about it. It is, I hate saying it, but it is what it is in that circumstance. Actually, the problem with the drive-bys aren't the purchases, it's the refis. Things that, properties that haven't been walked into in 10 years. Okay, so the drive-bys on those are more an issue than the purchases. I think the purchases are what they are. I think you guys represent what they are properly for the most part, and there's not going to be an issue with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just, coming from a place that there was an issue in the past, I'm just curious if it was a long-standing where we go back to not necessarily having appraisals.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. But no, it could be an issue where people start misrepresenting, but I don't think, I haven't seen any gross misrepresentations. If that's what you're referring to.
If we saw the values going up through the roof, I think, and then all the appraisals were coming in magically, I think that would be more concerning. But obviously, we're pretty flat, pretty stabilized here.
Right.
Absolutely.
I count like 10 1,000 in my head to throw out a lob for a topic. This is all pretty good stuff. Predictions, maybe the next 6 to 12 months. Where do you think we'll be?
I know.
That question always gets a laugh.
Anyone have a lucky coin?
Gonna win the election.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting though, because people keep on bringing up, well, it's about the election. People are waiting for the election. What are they waiting for? I'm just curious from your guys' standpoint.
I feel it's just a degree of uncertainty. Anytime there's any degree of uncertainty, it gives people pause. And I don't even think it's a matter of who wins. It's just about being done with it and just we can now know that this is the reality of things. And so once once the reality set in, I think people have more certainty, and with that comes more confidence. Where right now everything's just kind of up in the air.
Well, then that with COVID. So
Yeah.
be another lockdown. Are we going to be forced to, stay home? And which is why I think we saw a great summer. People were rushing to get into properties before the next potential lockdown. But I think the uncertainty right now goes beyond the election and who wins. I think it's this whole COVID lingering, scare. And fortunately, we're all doing well. We have our jobs still, but a lot of people don't. There's a lot of people who are, uncertain where they're going to be next year. So it concerns me about the market, but I'm optimistic that we will still hold strong in Chicago.
Yeah, it's funny because I always, have my end of summer depression when the summer's over. Like, no, but I've never looked forward to November so much before in my life because I'm just sick of hearing about it. As much as I'm involved in politics, I'm even tired of it. I just want it over with, whatever. Let's move on, and hopefully all this virus nonsense starts coming to an end sooner or later.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about like you guys brought up earlier, like marketing and stuff for like new business? That's been like one of the biggest things for me this year was to change everything around, because I was like, a lot of my business comes from past clients doing happy hours, doing networking events, open house things, broker open. So it's been a huge change in like my marketing for this year, with just reaching out more to people via email or phone or whatever. But it's difficult when you're so used to doing certain things for the longest time, and then you basically can't do any of those this year.
So this year, like one of my favorite events I have is normally I call it Bear Down with Brooke, and it's a pizza event where my clients come and they pick up pizzas, and I get to see them, and it's kind of that perfect like 5 minutes of FaceTime. And this year we did it, we called it Distance with Daitchman, and we did it outside at a restaurant, and we actually had like the same exact turnout as we've always had, and we just did it in more precise like time limits, so people had like a 15-minute window to come, and it actually worked out really, really well. And almost all my clients were just they're like, we're so glad you're doing it again. And we're, like I think Danielle said, people are just excited to kind of get out there a little bit, and it was still really safe. And I think it's just, some of the other events we do, we're already trying to figure out how we can tailor them to, make people feel more comfortable and more of kind of a drop off, say hi type thing, and less of a, I guess, social event that we would have in the past.
Yeah, we did. We were a sponsor for the drive-in movie theater at Soldier Field for, I don't remember how long it was, 6 or 8 weeks. So it was socially distanced. We invited all of our clients, everyone. We gave away tickets. So that was what we did this year instead of doing like a client appreciation party. We did have a night where we had like 40 or 50 cars come through that were all our clients. So I guess it was a client appreciation party, but just changing things up a little bit, which I don't like doing the same stuff all the time. It gets boring after a while. So that was kind of fun. I thought it was unique. Besides that, we haven't really been marketing much. I'll be honest. We're so busy. We're just trying to get through the work. And I think all this being said, even though everyone's saying stuff is sitting on the market and, that the market's slowing, I still think for an election year, the market right now is still very good, in my opinion. I don't think it's completely dead. I know we're still very busy. Even though it's taking longer to sell things and it's harder, we're still seeing people that want to sell. We're still getting people that want to buy. Like, it still, to me, feels like a much busier October than what it has been in past years, and even years where there has been an election.
I think, like you're saying, like it's more lifestyle based now. Like, people are moving for a reason. Yeah. So if they have that reason, then it's good. I miss like handshake hugs though. I don't know about you guys. I miss like seeing my people and like being at like events, because that's a whole part of this is like collaboration and like camaraderie. So we got to find a way to get the broker community together. Andy.
Pretty difficult when you're like a social creature and you like being at events and being around people and stuff. I was basically at one point getting excited just when like the Amazon guy delivered stuff.
You want to come in for a drink or have coffee? You invite your Amazon.
Later the day was walking to the mailbox.
I am seeing though, like, going back to the marketing is I've been pretty impressed with, and I have a lot of room for improvement in the marketing side of things with my business, but been impressed with like how agents are getting creative online with whether it be videos, like showcasing properties, or just different types of ways that they're engaging with their community online. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I think that gives us all hope that, you know, we're all going to find a way to pivot and figure out the new way to do things once this all kind of passes by. So I definitely just think it's powerful to be doing things like this just to see how we can all, you know, make each other better. So I don't know, that's just kind of an off tangent there, but.
So on the video thing, I love that we're all doing them, and I'm doing them now for all my listings, and I have more listings than buyers and spending more money on listings to market, but I think it slows down the showings. Like, showing everything doesn't give the buyers a reason to come see the property. And that's my only complaint with how we all now are marketing with so much more video, that we're not getting as many showings because you don't have to come in the door anymore. You can see everything virtually.
I can play devil's advocate because you know, the people that do like it from the video, they're going to become so infatuated with that video. They're going to watch that video 100 million times, and that is going to like embed their infatuation further. But you know, it could be, I've had those where I do a beautiful video and then they see it in person, and you know, it's not that I was misrepresenting the property, but you know, video is being edited and the lighting, things like that. So it can be a detriment where, you know, you get someone too excited, and then, you know, I like sometimes taking clients out on a full day of showings because I'm like, which one are you most excited about? And sometimes it's the one with the dumpiest photos that they're like, oh, and then they get really excited about it in person because they had their expectations so low going into it that once they saw it, they're like, oh, so these were just really bad photos and I really like this. And then sometimes the one with the best photos, it's like, oh, maybe not what I hoped. So a little rough. So I think, you know, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, basically, sort of thing. But, you know, for our sellers, if we're not getting anyone, we've got to try new things. One thing we've been doing is cross-marketing a lot of our listings with other peers, with the lifestyle component being reinforced. So if it's a home office, we were, you know, every week we would pick a different topic, and we would go through all the active listings of our favorite brokers, and so, you know, find our favorite office nooks. And then we would compare those all on social, tag the other agents. You know, if someone's now looking for a little yoga corner or Peloton, like, you know, all those rooftop little spots before you fall out on the roof, you know, little dugouts up there. It was just wasted space, this long little rectangle. It wasn't big enough for a desk, but you could put your Peloton up there. You know, all sorts of just creative marketing is one thing that we've been trying to do more so this year with our broker peers to just get more eyes on the listing and more engagement.
Two great perspectives. Yeah, I love it. I'll ask this. So I mean, about the end of summer, I mean, obviously weren't going to do it because I kind of take the pulse of people. I'm in constant, I mean, I'm text friendly, I would say, with most everybody on this call, but you know, the last thing that we want to do is put people in harm's way, you know, so I'm thinking spring at the earliest, but then, you know, March of this year, I'm like, oh yeah, our spring event of 2020 will be postponed a few weeks. We'll still do it. And, you know, here we are in middle of October. So I'm not going to like put a date on it, but yeah, it's just gauging people's comfort level. Like to your point, George, it's like, yeah, I miss my people, you know, this is all fun, and, you know, you pick each other's brains and collaborate and talk shop, but there's nothing like just kind of not talking about work and then having a drink and some appetizers together. I mean, you know, because I think there's just a difference vibe and a different aura that happens when people chat in person. So yeah, if we did an event, I mean, what's the earliest you would feel, and there's no wrong answer here, so I will preface it with this, I'm kind of putting people on the spot, like what's the earliest everybody on this would feel comfortable, and this is assuming that the city puts the blessing on it and gives the green light and all that, you know, to gather in groups of 50 or 100 plus, like what's the earliest everybody on here would feel comfortable showing up to something like that?
Tomorrow.
So we say tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's good?
Like, I'm ready to go.
I would have done it
I would have done it
4 months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Andy, you're probably the only one that has to answer that question, aren't you? You haven't gone anywhere, right?
Well, there's a lot of manpower. Sorry, there's a lot of women power too. There's actually probably more women power. Going to putting on an event, you know, and you expect 150 people and 17 show up. You know, it's not where you want to stick your resources. So that's all my concern. And plus, you know, it's just everybody's on a different spectrum of their comfort level.
I think the venue is important to make sure there's a lot of space and maybe outdoor space included, even if it's cold, but to still have that outdoor outlet. I just think people find comfort being outside right now.
Do like movie in the park, but like have it like projected on like a big screen, and then have like a panel up there that's like on video, and then have people just like hanging out in the park. Something like that.
I like that. My daughter and I can quote lines from Despicable Me. I think that would be probably mildly entertaining. But no, I genuinely go ahead.
I think I was a little concerned about that too, especially for the broker open house that we're having at the end of the month. And that's why we made it like a Halloween themed masquerade to kind of promote people wearing their mask. And also we wanted to make sure that we could apply to the social distancing and have like airflow. So that's the development that we're having it at, has like accordion doors that open all the way up to like a covered outdoor space with a fireplace out there. There's fireplaces inside, so we can turn up the heat and still have like everything open, like the windows all open. So, I mean, we're trying to make it work, but also being, you know, conscious of like what people need and want with what's going on. So if it was another development, I may not have done it, but I think with this one, it makes sense because we have these capabilities of making it able for people to social distance and for airflow and stuff. But I mean, for me personally, like, I mean, we're out. I mean, I feel like I'm out every day with people in the public. So like, I would be fine with, you know, I've been to other broker open houses. I would be fine with going to events at this point, but I do understand that everyone's different. But I think too, right now, like, you know, that's the kind of the good thing about it is if you're a person that likes to go to events and there's stuff to do and you want to go, you can, but if you don't have to, and there's no issue with that either, right? I think we're going to try to do some of our broker open house that night live too, if we can, to get other people that maybe don't want to come to be able to see the place as we walk through it. I don't know. I just think that's what we're trying to do, I guess, per se, because I want to make sure that we're, you know, accommodating everyone and what their needs are, what their wants are right now with everything going on.
Absolutely. Anybody else thoughts on in-person stuff? Justin, what are you thinking?
You know, I'm comfortable with it. I know my wife would prefer outdoors or nothing.
Yeah, I was just curious. It's a fine line. So I mean, I'm open to it. Obviously, I think it's wise to put it on pause for, especially as even just general flu season comes. But that's just my initial thoughts. But I mean, yeah, somebody development, it's open air, it's nice. I mean, you know, anybody has a place that's looking for exposure, not that type of exposure. You know what I mean? I gotta stop using that word. Every time that word flies out of my mouth, it's like, it used to have a great connotation. Now it does not. So anyway, but no, it's good because I asked, I was on something like this, I think in August or maybe July, and the pulse of everybody was like, no, the last thing you want is somebody getting COVID. It gets linked back to your event because you had 100 people there, Andy, you know, and now obviously it's changed. So I've just, you know, I appreciate everybody being just honest and forthcoming with where they're at. So anybody else, final thoughts? No? Yeah?
I say just do it.
throw a Nike logo on it, right?
Yeah, just see who shows up. I mean, like Danielle said, if they're comfortable, they're comfortable. If they're not, they're not, you know?
No, that's good. Well, yeah, I'm trying to take, if we're going to sink energy into this, then hey, when's a good spot where 80 to 90% of our community is cool with it and will show up versus like 30 to 40 to 50%. That's kind of like where my headspace is at. So I think a development would be cool to do it. I'm just curious. Well, we are a minute past. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and schedule. I hear that realtors do have money to make, clients to text to respond to. Everybody's phones have probably been blowing up since they've on this. So thank you, Jake, Danielle, Laura, Dan, Jordan. Justin, Michael, Brooke, just for carving this hour. I know you can all be doing other stuff at this time. Hopefully this was fun for you. If you're interested in getting on another one of these, probably, I mean, I think we are booked out of these until like middle of November, maybe December. So, you know, let a couple months elapse. We can shuffle the deck, give different new agents on, partners on. But this was fun. So I'm going to cut the live feed now. And
Thanks, Andy.
yes,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Andy.
If you have other stuff to do, seriously, feel free, bail. I ran a minute over, but I'm going to stop the live stream. Okay, live stream's done. Thank you guys so much. I will send out just a thank you email, and then everybody's contact info on the bottom in a BCC if you want to connect after. But just thanks for the time, and let me know if you guys know me. You know how I roll. Let me know if there's any way I can help you and in your business. And I wish everybody a productive rest of your Tuesday.
All right.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy.
See you guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Thanks,
Adios.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
See you guys.
Okay.